Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to be talking about the Pegasus Ensemble Manager, which is one of the tools that we distribute along with the Pegasus Workflow Management System. But before I get into the Ensemble Manager itself, I'm going to first briefly introduce workflow ensembles. So applications for large computational problems, these are often composed of several interrelated workflows grouped into what we call ensembles. And these ensemble workflows, the workflows that are part of this ensemble, they typically have a similar structure and they differ in several aspects. So that being the input data that's used, the number of tasks in each workflow, and then the individual task sizes in each workflow. So let's take a look at some real-world applications that utilize these types of ensemble workflows. So Cybershake is an application that was developed by the Southern California Earthquake Center to generate seismic hazard maps. And in a 2013 study that they did, Cybershake ran an ensemble of 2,288 workflows to generate hazard maps for over 286 individual sites. And so on the bottom left there, you can see an example of one of the workflows that's part of this ensemble. And then to the right of that is some of the generated output. The next, we have the Montage Galactic Plane Ensemble. So this was developed by the NASA IPAC Infrared Science Archive, and it's an ensemble that consists of 17 workflows, and each workflow contains 900 sub-workflows. So this is a really large application. It uses an input data set of roughly 18 million images, and then it uses the montage engine to generate a multi-wavelength image atlas of the galactic plane. So on the bottom there, that's one of the types of images that Montage can generate that was taken from the gallery on their website. And then on the right there, you can see what this galactic plane ensemble looks like, what the topology of these workflows look like as well. So now that I've introduced ensembles and some real world use cases, we can talk about the Ensemble Manager. So this is basically a service for managing collections of workflows, which we've defined as ensembles. And it has been developed as part of Pegasus because we really want to support these types of workloads. Because it's sort of like a centralized service for managing multiple workflow runs, it does eliminate the need for you to keep track of multiple submit directories. So if you were to run, a whole slew of workflows with Pegasus just as it is, you would need to keep track of these things. But with the Ensemble Manager, you can sort of have better control over multiple workflow runs. Additionally, it does provide you with ensemble level configuration options. So we have max planning and max running. And so these allow you to throttle the number of workflows in the ensemble that can be concurrently planned and executed. These are really useful to sort of limit the impact of memory usage on the submit host, and then also the load on the submit host and the remote execution site due to concurrently running these workflows. And then also you can set priorities for each workflow within the ensemble to dictate which workflows are planned or executed first. Last, the Ensemble Manager does provide you with monitoring and debugging capabilities. So it uses Pegasus Status and Pegasus Analyzer, and these are two tools that you might already be familiar with. So now we can look at what the Ensemble Manager looks like on the submit host. So here we have the Ensemble Manager, and it's up and running next to Pegasus and HD Condor, which is a prerequisite. We have two ensembles. There is this one right here with two workflows. Each have the same priority, and max running is set to 2. And then on the right here, we have another ensemble with 2 workflows, but they have different priorities, and max running is set to 1. So at some point in time, the Ensemble Manager is going to come to processing these workflows, and they'll be executed on behalf of the Ensemble Manager by Pegasus. So here we have 3 workflows that are going to be running at the same time, and that's because of these priorities and how max running is set. And once these workflows are planned and then submitted by Pegasus, HD Condor is going to handle the job execution, do all the heavy lifting underneath. So let's take a look at actually using the Ensemble Manager. The first thing that you would need to do is start up the Ensemble Manager service on the submit node where Pegasus and hdconda is installed, just like this. And so this is done by simply running the command Pegasus EM server, and this will bring up the Ensemble Manager. There's no ensembles yet or workflows. Next, you need to then create the ensemble. So in this example, we'll create an ensemble called myruns using the command Pegasus EM create myruns, which gives us this right here. And we'll use this name myruns as sort of like a namespace when performing operations on its workflows. Next, you can optionally configure max planning and max running just by using the command Pegasus EM config myruns, and then you set these integer values. So in this example, we've done that right here. And then finally, we want to add some workflows to this ensemble. So I'm going to add 2 workflows. You would use the command Pegasus EM submit myruns, and then you give it the name of the workflow that you would want to identify it with, and then the path to the workflow script that you use to generate and plan the workflow. And so we'll do that for 2 workflows. And then again, for each workflow, you can optionally set priorities within them. So if I wanted to set the priority of one of the workflows, I would use this command right here, and you would just say -p and some integer value, higher being higher priority. So in regards to what the workflow script looks like, referring to these 2 right here. Now in 5.0, you would just use the API to write your workflow and build it up. And then at the end, you would just need to call plan without actually submitting it. If this was Pegasus 493 and below, typically you'd create a shell script. And in that shell script, you would have a workflow generator, which would generate the DAX file. And then at the end of that script, you would just need to call Pegasus plan like you normally would, but without submitting the workflow to be executed. Okay, so after you've done that, at some point, these workflows are going to be up and running. And if you want to go ahead and monitor them, there's several ways that you can do that. So the first thing is use Pegasus EM workflows and then the name of your workflow. And that will give you sort of a high-level overview of what's the status of all the workflows in that ensemble. Then if you want to look at more detail into each workflow, you can use the Pegasus EM Status command. So internally, that just calls Pegasus Status, and that will show you the same output that Pegasus Status does. If, for instance, one of the workflows fails, then you can use Pegasus EM Analyze, and you give it the name of the ensemble and the workflow, and that will give you Pegasus Analyzer output for that specific workflow. So in the 5.0 release, we've also added 2 workflow triggers to the Ensemble Manager. So one is a cron-based trigger, and so this will add the same workflow to the Ensemble Manager at some specified time interval. So for example, we can use this command here, Pegasus EM cron trigger, and this will add this workflow script to the ensemble every hour, and it will time out in a day. So if you want to just periodically keep adding things to the Ensemble Manager, you can do that with these triggers. Then as an extension to that, we've also added this file pattern based trigger. So it works the same as the above with the addition of you being able to specify file patterns for which every time this workflow is added to the Ensemble Manager, so in this example, 10 seconds, all the new input files that were detected that match this pattern will be passed as a command line argument using the --inputs flag to the workflow when it gets planned. So this is really useful when you periodically have data coming into some directory, excuse me, and you want to process it on regular intervals. So that's something common. It's basically like having these triggers watch on this input directory, and the Ensemble Manager will sort of take care of the rest and keep submitting workflows using those files as inputs. Okay, so next I briefly want to talk about a REST API for this. So this is something that we're currently working on. So the goal here is to expose the Ensemble Manager as a REST endpoint that will provide create, read, update, and delete operations on all of the ensembles, workflows, and triggers. We do intend to provide Python and Java client code, and so this will really help to improve support for integrating the Ensemble Manager into larger systems. So on the right here, these are some of the routes that we currently have, probably going to add more. But if you be on the lookout for our upcoming release, and you can see what we have to offer in regards to this. Okay, so this brings me to the end, and I just want to recap on everything that I presented here. It's sort of a lot of information squished down into 10 minutes. But so as we've seen, the Ensemble Manager, it's the service that resides on the submit host along with Pegasus and HT Condor. And it's really useful for managing groups of workflows. And we've seen some real world applications with Skek and Cybershake and the montage Galactic plane workflow ensemble, I'm sorry. And then this Ensemble Manager is very useful for monitoring and debugging all of these multiple workflow runs using the tools Pegasus Status and Pegasus Analyzer. Next, we have workflow triggers. So this will help sort of automate some of your data processing. And then finally, we're currently working on this REST API for an upcoming release. And so, you can keep an eye out for that. Okay, so that concludes the talk, and thanks a lot.